Welcome, everybody. Welcome. I was dancing up a storm here. I guess I missed going out, and since we can't go out, I was really enjoying. I was like, hey, I want to welcome everyone who's joining us for this very, very special fashion sketching and fashion trends for 2021 here at FIDM. I am Nick Varios, your moderator and host. I am the co-chair of fashion design department, which also entails the theater costume design department, the advanced study in film and TV costume design as well, and the advanced study in fashion design. And I'm also an avid fan of fashion sketching. You can take a look at my Instagram and see, and I even included some of my very own fashion sketches right behind me. Hello. So I want to welcome everybody who's joining us for this great workshop. Now let me give you a little background. The female figure generally measures 8 heads, and that is 8 head lengths. But in fashion design, the industry standard is to use a 9 head figure. That's because it's more elongated, it's more stylish, it's more dramatic. Now, I welcome you guys for this exciting hands-on fashion sketching workshop taught by our very own FIDM grad and instructor, who will show you how to communicate design ideas via the fashion sketch. In addition, you'll see a special presentation on upcoming fashion trends for 2021. Ooh, I'm staying tuned for that. And get a chance to practice drawing them on your very own designs. So, now, let me introduce your sketching diva instructor, Marina Leight. She began custom order designs at 14 years old, and she attended FIDM.edu, which is the Advanced Study in Fashion Design, in 2004, and graduated best in her class, naturally, awarded an apprenticeship in Rome, Italia. That's Rome, Italy. She worked and studied couture in Italy for 3 years, worked with teams from several European design houses. She came back to the United States in 2007 to open design agency and factory, worked with many US designer labels, and continued custom design 94 to now, making several red carpet gowns, editorial pieces, and stage costumes for celebrities, naturally. She's shown collections in Paris, London, Rome, Florence, New York, Los Angeles, and Beijing. All right, so she also opened a zero-waste atelier in West LA last year, focusing on MLA collection and private lessons. Her Instagram, make sure to follow her, is Marina Leight, L-E-I-G-H-T, Atelier. Everybody, let's welcome your fashion sketching instructor and Trends 2021 presenter, Marina Leight.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Fashion Sketching. Welcome to the FIDM Fashion Sketching lecture series. I'm really excited to be able to work with all of you. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be talking about trends, as Nick was sharing with us, and also I'm going to teach you how to make an industry standard fashion croquis. Now, what a croquis is, it's a form of the figure that we draw clothes on top of. So I'm going to teach you the basics on how to make it. And also keep in mind, all of this is recorded. You can come back and watch it again. So if I'm going a little quick for you, don't worry, just sit back, watch it, enjoy. You can always go back, study the videos later. If you care to follow along, you are welcome to do so. And at the end, we will have an opportunity to share our work. So really quickly, let's talk about trends a little bit to start. So it's really interesting. Every once in a while in history, something so major will happen that it actually ends up changing the direction of trends. Because I don't know if you realize this, but in fashion that is in the stores is designed several years before it even hits the runway or the stores. And predictives are something that are very fascinating. It's a science of trends. So the pre-pandemic runway collections were very structural. Some of them very tailored, very dark, very clean. There was lots of fur, there was lots of glitter, there was lots of beading. We love all of this. But what ended up happening is after 6 months of people staying inside, lots of crafting ended up happening, lots of comfort. So now what's happening is there's a hybrid of these styles that are coming out together. So we still see the structural design, we still see the embellishments, but we're seeing a lot of sweaters. We're seeing a lot of handwork. It's like the crafting is coming back into high fashion. Christopher Kane just put out his recent collection, and it's all based on the paintings that were done while at home. I think that's actually what his collection name was called. And so it's like you're seeing designers that are painting on their fabrics, that are hand knitting, that are patchworking. Patchworking is huge. And it's interesting because some of these trends were already happening on the runway, but now it's even supported even stronger. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna illustrate our 9 head, which it's actually ends up being like 9.5 heads. It's kind of crazy. Figure first, and then we're gonna work on applying some of these trends on top of it. So let me get started. I'm just going to show you really quickly on my sketch cam that I have right here. So if you look, you're going to see that there's also going to be live sketching that I'm going to be doing while I'm talking with you. And I'll go over bits and then I'll pause. You guys can work on a little bit and we'll continue. I'll continue working through it because at the end I want to have time for everybody to share and obviously be able to add some of the trends on there. So first I want to show you 2 different versions of a 9 head. When I'm illustrating the 9 head, I'm going to be showing you kind of how, the way that it works for me is to break it into shapes. So I look at, it's really based on a lot of measurements and, but the shapes all correlate to one another. And you'll see being able to kind of put in where the muscle points are, the direction of the muscles, things like that. It'll make it so that the clothes hang better on the models. So this is the model where it's kind of broken up into shapes. This is a smoothed out illustration with shading added to it. So right here, I've started out by doing a very rough version. And what we're going to be working on is we'll start with our blank piece of paper. You can either have the large sketching size, I believe that's 14 by 17, or if you like, you can also be working at home with an 8.5 by 11. So a really nice way to be able to find a good straight center line for starting out is to fold your paper in half and just do a couple of creases like that. So you have some creases down the middle. You can also use your straight edge. So clear ruler is my favorite. It's great because it's got all these mark points on it that you can follow as you're working. But if you don't have a straight edge, literally any right angle. In a pinch, you can use just another piece of paper. I do that quite often. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be drawing a line down the center of your paper, and we're breaking it into 10 to 11 spaces. Because the 9 heads, you got to remember that this little mark at the top isn't number 1. Number 1 is at the chin because this is 1 head length. So on an 8.5 by 11, your head length is going to be probably about 1 inch. On your larger paper, it's about 1.5 inches. So I've got my line down the middle, taking my straight edge. I don't go all the way to the top, but I get pretty close. And I do my first mark, and then all the way down. Each of these are 1.5 inches apart. Now, like I was saying, if you don't have a ruler, you can always take another piece of paper, because it doesn't have to be exactly 1 inch or 1.5 inches. And you can do this and use this piece of paper as your ruler. When you're designing, when you're draping, when you're making clothes, you can use anything as a measuring device. You just need to have something that's a point of measure that's consistent throughout. All right, so the bottom of the first line is our first head. I would recommend writing the numbers next to it. It's going to make it easier to follow later. And down to 10. Okay. Now I'm going to do an egg shape for the head. And there's our head. Now, between our 1 and our 2, directly in between, I'm going to do a soft little line. That's going to be our shoulder line. Now, one thing I want you to notice, look at how my shoulder, there's like this triangle here. So the shoulder line is this point, but the neck kind of goes up into it. So you're going to go straight. Well, I'll show you when we get to that point, but just remember that as we're going. So this is going to be where our shoulder line is. 3 is where our waist is going to be. 4 is going to be the widest point of the hip. Right below the 4, you're going to do a little notch. That's going to be the crotch line. 6 is going to be your knees. At 7 is going to be the high point of the calf. And then the ankles come in. You can kind of choose how long you want the legs to be. Generally, it happens somewhere above the 9 is where your ankles are going to be, and then your feet as well. When I'm teaching illustration, I like to leave a lot of creative leniency. It needs to make sense. The figure needs to look balanced. So having certain points that you hit, it helps. But if, let's say your taste or your style is to have very small hands or very big hands, exaggerated feet. Exaggerated features, totally fine with it. Whether you want, how wide you want to make a figure, those sort of things you can exaggerate and it's still going to end up looking really beautiful in fashion. But if, if parts of the body, how it's broken up, aren't in the right place, that will end up starting to look odd. So we have we've got our egg here. And now we're going to do just a tube going down to where that shoulder line is. The shoulder, the way that I like to do it, it ends up being the same as what Nancy does in the book, 9 Heads, which I actually don't have right here. I have the book that we use for the second course, the illustration 2 of fashion, colors for fashion. But I would also highly recommend getting the 9 Heads book. It is an excellent publication. So the way I do it is I start by drawing where the rib cage is, not the widest point in the shoulders. So the rib cage is about a head length, which is what I was doing is I was doing 1 1/4 or 1 1/2, excuse me. So that looks quite narrow because I haven't added the shoulder on yet. So if you notice here, this is where my rib cage is, and we have a shoulder right here that moves away from, this stays stable, and the arms move from it. So I start with the rib cage into the waist. I'm not going to call out a waist size. That is for you to determine what you think looks the best for your personal illustration style. I also like to very gently draw in where the ribs are. And I do that mostly for being able to kind of eye how I want garments to hit on the figure. I'm going to leave a lot of these lines on here so that when I'm drawing fashion on top of it and using this as a template, I have these lines and I know that, oh, if this is where the rib cage is, that this is where the shirt's probably going to end up hitting if it's a sleeveless. Okay, so in between our 3 and our 4, I very gently draw in a high hip line. And you can see here as I'm going, what I'm doing here. This is the high hip. It's also kind of nice because even though that's a guideline, it looks like she's wearing some high-waisted briefs. So it's already kind of like ready for a more retro-inspired bathing suit. I come out, this is another place where it's up to you how wide you would like to make your figure's hips. This little line down here below the 4, because this is our 4, that's the crotch line. Crotch line is going to go up into those high hips. This is the place that the leg is going to be bending from. Now, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and draw a line through the center of that hip opening down to the ankles. Ankles, I'm just drawing a couple small balls right here. This is going to be the center of my legs. And then at this point, let's go ahead and put some knees on. So I'm going to move, I'm going to put the knees right below the 6 line. Also, we got some little balls there. I do a similar shape for elbows, wrists. It's any of those ball joints. So we've got them here, we've got them here. I'm going to go ahead and add in, I'm going to take a peek at the chat, make sure that we're all doing good. Awesome. Okay, so from this point, let's go ahead and finish the legs, and then I will go into the arms. It's going to be a similar type of formula. So let me move this. There we go. So I'm not messing up the camera. Now with legs, I like to give my figures a little bit of thigh. So this is what I do, where I like to draw very gently, draw kind of like where those muscles are. I mentioned this in my class. So my mom was a professional ballerina, and so that was the image that I grew up seeing for the female figure. So my figures tend to look like ballerinas. They're slender, but they're muscular and toned. And so your style is really just going to be what inspires you for fashion, for beauty. And it could really be anything. So it definitely does not need to look like mine. So I get the thigh muscle, I get some muscle here, and I come out to the knee. So there's gonna be, you could come straight down, or you could do a nice slight curve to that knee. Now on the bottom of the circle of the kneecap, I'm just gonna put some little dimples there. Now, the leg comes around the kneecap and around these muscles. Very, very slight. You can do it straight if you want and just have it like this. Personal preference. A thing that I like to point out on the calf is that the calf muscles are at this kind of angle, and the highest point is up at the 7, so they're going to come out a little bit and then down. If you want to make them the same size on the inside and the outside, that's fine. And it comes down into the ankle. And the cool thing about drawing those lines is that you already have the shin bone on there. So when you're shading it, it's going to end up, you can shade it around that shin bone. It's going to look really nice and clean. Let me see if I can slide it up a bit because we're getting low. Oh, and what I can also do is just move the camera. It's actually been really nice seeing how nice it is to teach illustration via Zoom. I definitely have been impressed. It translates really well. Okay, now we're gonna do the feet. The feet are pretty much going to be elongated diamonds, at least at this point, because if you think about it, we're gonna be maybe drawing them in heels. And what happens when the foot's up like this and the toes straight at you, it ends up kind of having this elongated diamond type look, and that's where the top of the shoe is. So we're gonna go like this and get our little toes. I've had students that have made the feet super, super teeny, some that have made them super, super long, up to you. Just want it to make sure that it has a good balance to it. All right. Now we are at the point where we can move up to the arms. Arms, I'm going to be, we'll start at the shoulders. And remember I was showing you that we have this place here where the muscle goes up into the neck. So we're just going to make a little triangle right there. And then we're going to add on the tops of the arms. The arms you can make as muscular as you want. You can make them slender, any width you want, and then it's going to just be kind of like a tube. Our elbows are right at the waist. There's something that I showed here. You want to put the arms in motion. The kind of like the swing of a hem of a skirt, as the arm moves up, it always stays the same distance from that point. So if it moves up, that elbow's not going to be there, it's going to be here. So think about that as you're illustrating. It's going to always match up with the waist. And then we have the forearm, also kind of like an elongated tube. And this is where our wrists are going to hit, as right around that crotch line and go into the hands. Now, hands you can do in a couple different ways. If you want, you can draw them very similar to how you did on the feet, or you could go in and do like a bell with a triangle on it. I did something kind of similar to this right here, you can see. I'm going to make it very simple to start, and depending on our time, the feeling we'll probably get more into illustrating the apparel than the hands. Okay, so now what we can do is we can, we're going to do the apex. This is something you will learn in fashion. Apex is the high point of the bust. So this line on the 2, that is the high point. That doesn't mean that that's the bottom of the bust line. Also, all parts of the figure all fit into one another. Perfect example. Your ear goes straight into your jawline. So all the different parts of the body connect to one another. So the side of the bust connects into the armpit, and the bust line comes under, and then this is the center of the bust right here. So that's something that you will learn when you are making your fabulous designs, which, by the way, you guys, I'm really excited for. I'm so excited for the future of fashion. Oh, it's so nice. I think that there's everyone that's pivoting and changing their outlook on the way that they produce and create and design are doing incredibly well. So this is a time for change in the industry, and it's happening, and it's really nice. So I'm excited for all of you guys. There's some really cool things happening. Okay, so what I just did right there is I took the head and I put a line directly through the center. So I know this might trip you out a little bit, but your eyes are actually the center of your head. Most people draw eyes way up here, but you don't realize, and I'm kind of a bad example because I have a really big forehead, but usually a hairline on someone is like right there. But the eyes are actually the center point of the head. And then you divide that in half, you've got the nose, and you divide that in half, and you got the mouth. So what I like to do on my template is just kind of mark in those points, and then I add in the details afterwards. So I know that this is my halfway mark. That's where the eyes are going to be. I do a little mark halfway in between. I made her nose a little high. Halfway in between here and here. Boop, that's her nose. Halfway in between there and there, it's the mouth. And then you can add in a little chin. And then let's see if that is actually the halfway point. Yeah, that's pretty good. And so then you can decide how large you want the forehead to be. And if you want it rounded, if you want it squared, there's all these little subtle nuances that you can do in your illustration to change the mood of the drawing. This is one of the things that is very important to consider, because depending on the type of designer you are, you choose your models based off the type of design you're doing. So let's say that you are Rick Owens and you're doing really, really dark, edgy, avant-garde fashion. You're not going to choose the same models most likely as, I don't know, I'm trying to think of somebody that's like really soft and fluffy. I don't know, that's in like the Nordstrom catalog. How about that? So you have to kind of think about that. Like, what's your design style? What do you want your models to look like? Start looking at fashion, either inspiration, magazines, things like that, and see how they actually choose their models based off of what story they're trying to tell, because essentially designers are storytellers. Okay, so we now have our figure that is broken into shapes. And what we would do at this point, you can leave it like this and darken it in and keep all these different mark points, or you can smooth it out. So if we were smoothing it out, I'll leave this one the way it is and I'll smooth out this one. We'll go into these guys right here. And I like to show that that shoulder goes into the arm. And then you can take your eraser and start erasing out some of these spots. I like to add in collarbones. Still gave her very square shoulders, but that's okay. It's all these little things, like I was saying, it kind of depicts the mood of the figure. Mine tend to be like androgynous ballerinas. It's apparently what my style aesthetic is. In my models, because that's definitely not what I am. Okay, and we got my high hip, then going into my widest point. And cleaning it up. And some cool things that you can do at this point is you can start adding in some shading. So belly button is usually right in between the 3 and the 4. And to shade your figure, you're going to be using the side of your pencil, because if you see on your pencil, this is kind of a bad example because it's a little bit worn down. The bottom edge of the pencil right here, it's nice and long and flat. It's really good for shading that way. So you put the pencil along the side here and you shade it up. And you just go along the edge of the figure. You already have a perfect line to follow for the shins. Think about the direction of your light, which is another thing that you will get into. Oh man, I hope I get to see you guys one day. And then we're gonna go along here. You're always gonna have nice, distinct, strong shadows anywhere where you have a large overlap in clothing, in the body. So if there's like the body's, your legs are crossed, your arms are crossed, or right here along the chin, you'll have a very distinct shadow line. And have some shading around the face. And we'll do a little quickie on the eyes. Let's stand up if you don't mind, it's a little easier. So, eyes. I'll go ahead and start with I'm doing it large, and then I'll show you how to do it really teeny, but I just want you to understand what I'm doing as I'm doing it. So on the eyeball, it's the iris of the eye. Your eyelid's not going to come onto the top of the iris. It's going to end up overlapping a bit, or otherwise your figure is going to look very surprised. And then you put an almond on top of it. You can have the almond any shape you like, whether it's tilted up, flat, wide, thin, up to you. You just need to make sure that it is covering, the lid is covering the top portion and just kissing up onto the bottom of the iris. We'll go ahead and add the pupil in there, and always add in a couple reflections of light. That makes it so that the eyes don't look dead. And you want to also make sure that you are putting color into the iris as well, because either having no reflection or no dark, it just makes it so that there isn't life in your figure. Okay, so we've got an eye. I add a little bit of the tear duct on the side. I always kind of darken in the corner. And then at this point, you can see that that's the top of the eye. That's where the fold of that, you're gonna have some folds in your eyelid as well. At this point, I always do really dark shadows up at the top and then shade it around, dark in the middle. I'm gonna go a smidge quick. Eyelashes is going to go in this shape. Ooh, like this. Don't draw all your eyelashes going straight up. They're gonna go off to the side. And then as I get towards the center, they go up like that. Okay, now nose. Got that little, all noses have essentially all the same parts. It just depends on how large or small you want to make them. Got that, start with the center ball. You make the part that comes, that was a little too sketchy, sorry guys. You've got the center ball, and then you got, mine's a little extra droopy, so you've got a little droop here, and you have the opening and then the sides. Okay. Oh, I was looking at chat, but there's Q&A. Okay, awesome. Okay, so these right here are like commas. You see, like little commas, and then you can come around on the side. This right here, you don't have to keep it, but that's your guide for shading around the nose and up at the top. You can get rid of that there, but you can shade it. And then our lips. You start with the center shape. You do that. You can literally do that. This is still gonna look just as cute. You're gonna do two very large, gentle mountains. And then one sweeping lake, I just made that up. So one version. Another. The things that are going to make these look really good when it's on the figure is by the lips and the eyelashes, the lines in them go the same way. Same with the eyebrow. So you're going to have lines that come like this and like this, and then we will shade it up. Your top lip, I'm going in the shape of the lip. Your top lip is always going to be darker than your lower lip. Sometimes they'll be the same color, like right now I have bright light on me and I just put on lipstick. But generally, people aren't looking into a ring light. Well, I guess in the world today, everyone's generally always looking at a ring light. So what you'll have is the top lip will be a bit darker, because you'll have a natural shadow. Get a good shadow in the corners of the lip. That always helps. It's kind of like making sure that you put a little triangle in the corners of the eye. And then this you make a bit lighter. And then this guy, you just do the same thing. Darker in the corners. Go in this direction. And same thing here. So it's going to be more rounded. Okay, eyebrows. Same idea as the eyelashes. And the is the same on the, I've got too many things open, sorry you guys. Let me just move this so I can see everything at the same time. So now on the eyebrows, it's the same sort of idea. They go in this direction. Ooh, remember I was telling you everything in the face is connected. Look at that. Look at the side of my eye, the side of my eyebrow, and the side of my nose. And then it meets right in the center of my lips. Crazy. Okay, so we've got the bottom of the eyebrow. You guys can make your eyebrows any shape you like, but generally it's kind of like that shape. Just depends on what you like. But what you're gonna do, you draw that bottom line, and then you're gonna fill it in going this way, this way, this way. Scribble, and it looks really good. So let's do this very quickly on the, these all stay pretty much the same. The eye gets, like, when you condense it down, it really simplifies. You're drawing not the entire almond. I'm just doing kind of the top and around the bottom, and part circle and fill it in and leave a little bit of white. So what I did, if I blow that up, it looks like this. Okay. So I know that that's one of the things I've had students that have kind of struggled with. So on the eyes, that's another one of those areas where you can decide how exaggerated you want to go. When you're doing a nose really fast, you can kind of literally just do like a little triangle that's shaded. I'm gonna give her some lashes. One of her eyes looks a little angry. Okay, so now at this point, let's put on some clothes. Okay, so the nice thing about having our figures like this is they already are divided into all of those lines that clothing would hang on. Now, bodies are rounded. So you want to make sure when you're putting on the clothes that you're not drawing them straight and flat. And you want to keep in mind you're doing fashion illustration. What's the construction of the clothing? You don't want to draw something, but you're not able to actually get into it, or it doesn't have a armhole seam, things like that. It needs to actually make sense. One of the things I wanted to talk to you guys about, art versus design. So art is is making something beautiful. It's evoking emotions in people. Design is the combination of form and function. So a good design can be artistic and it can be beautiful, but it needs to be functional. So that's one of the things you have to consider as you're doing this. I mean, you could do fashion that is strictly art, but it's potentially not going to be very wearable. Now, what I just did is I put my illustration underneath a piece of paper. You press it down and it shows right through. So now what I can do is I can draw over the top of this as I'm going. Well, these are sitting here. There we go. Let's look at this. So we've got a lot of patchwork that's happening. Fur and faux fur was on the runway before, so it's still kind of being incorporated. We've got layering, we've got tailoring. So let's look at drawing a patchwork jacket, and I'll just keep adding crazy stuff to it. If there's a certain type of garment that you would like to see, you can go ahead and put that in the chats, and we'll see if I end up adding it to our crazy ensemble. So remember, fashion is going to be a combination of chic, inspiring, and also cozy, lots of handwork. Fashion, I feel like that one of the ways that you see that fashion is reflected in what's happening kind of in the world around us is that when things are going like really, really well, fashion has a tendency to become a little bit more minimal. When people want to be excited and inspired, and fashion gets really big and colorful. So we're definitely, I'm feeling like we're on the brink of some really big, fun, colorful, exciting fashion. All right, so what I'm doing, I very, very lightly outline my figure. And I've got all these great lines that are on there. Now on this jacket, I'll have it open so then that way I can decide. The jacket collar goes around the back of the neck. So I'm drawing it around, and you can erase that back line. You just want to make sure that those two sides match up. And it looks like it's hitting right about here. So one of the things I was talking about, just like having the collar go around the neck, is that bodies are not flat, they are rounded. So you want to make sure that your armholes need to be rounded. It wouldn't just be a straight line. And that you might, what I like to do is kind of like add a little bit of a wrinkle on the side. So I might draw a line and then just do something like that as I'm going. So I feel like it gives the fabric a little bit of a flow. I mean, what I'm wearing is extremely wrinkled, so it's kind of a bad example, but a little wrinkly here, a little wrinkly there, and it's actually quite a bit longer. Let's go to here. So it's going to come up over the hips and open. And what I'm going to do is very lightly lay out the entire garment, and then I'll add in all of the details. So that's another thing, is that you might have an idea in your head and you'll do one part of the garment really detailed, and then you realize it doesn't really work with what the other things you're wanting to illustrate. You don't want to have to go back and erase a bunch of things. Okay, so I'm going to say, okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to combine a few of the things that we've got going on there. And I think that I have time to do 2 outfits, maybe more. So we're going to do patchwork, and I'm going to do a jumpsuit, and I'll do a jumpsuit on her, and I'll do a long gown dress with ruffles. So that kind of combines some things. And maybe on the jumpsuit I can get some boots. We'll see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to make this, just like I was saying, you draw it lightly because maybe you want to change the way that you are laying it out. So I'm doing a jacket with some opening it up a little bit more, and I'm going to have it kind of go behind her hip so that you can see her fabulous dress. Make it like super low cut, and I'm going to have some seams coming this way and this way. Oh, I saw some designers doing some really cool like cutouts and combinations. So many fun things happening. So we'll have it come up like this, and then maybe it'll start coming down like this. And then we'll go into some ruffles. Okay, ruffles. Ruffles are fun. The way that you do ruffles, really easy. If you can do this, you can draw ruffles. What you're gonna do is take, this is your hem. Maybe put it on a piece of paper that doesn't have stuff behind it. So this is going to be your hem. And then you're going to combine the lines of the folds right to where those ruffles fold. See that? Insta ruffles. So let's go ahead and add some ruffles here. I'm making it crazy big. Maybe it is. And now that I did that, I'm like, no, too many sections there. That's why you do it lightly. It looks like this is probably something you have to consider. What fabric is this out of? So the jacket is out of something heavy, whether it's a denim or a twill, and the skirt is out of something very, very soft and flowy. Is it a chiffon? Is it a silk? It definitely has some sort of marrow, maybe a little bit of like teeny horsehair. And there you go. You want to move all of that. And then at this point, we can fill in some of the stuff. Let's go ahead and give this a fur collar while we're at it. It's a very interesting outfit. Okay. So so Rala was asking about the Carhartt. This jacket is actually a really good foundation for it. You can see, you just take all the patches off of it. It's going to be very structural. It's a very stiff fabric. You want to always think about that. What's the drape? So I'm going to go ahead and add some fur. fur and hair and lace and anything that has like a texture to it all follows kind of the same guide. So fur, you're going to be doing kind of inconsistent shapes to it. So it depends on how fluffy it is. If it's like if it's a soft fluff, or if it's a long fluff like this. See how I made them kind of inconsistent? Hair is gonna do the same thing. It's not gonna all be like a really clean shape. If you make it really clean, it's gonna not look like hair. So what I'm gonna do is make a little, it's good that I had that collar already kind of drawn in, because then I can, and do you notice I'm also using the side of my pencil because it's gonna end up giving it a kind of like a wider, softer illustration. And then when filling in the fur, you're only gonna really darken it in the areas where the shadows are. See how I'm just kind of like, the shadows would be around the neck, just like with my shirt, shadows. And then it's gonna be around the bottom, shadows. And then in the middle, just add a couple little boo boo in there. Okay, so now at this point, I've got some nice seams in there. We've got our jacket. I will erase what's happening underneath. I'm gonna go ahead and give it fur cuffs. And give her a knit hat. And I'm gonna let's raise up her mouth a little bit. Start with the mouth and then do the nose. Okay, so got her knit cap. And I am shading it in just on the bottom, doing the sideways with the pencil, putting the ribs in there. I'm gonna go ahead and add in some long hair. I'm the type of designer that when I'm illustrating really quickly, I will draw one eye for perspective, and then if I have time at the end, I add in the other, and if I don't, then she just has one eye. So just so you know, that's what's going on there. Okay, so I'm gonna add in some pockets. The nice thing is I am following the line on number 2. You see how I've added those lines onto the figure, and I have perfect lines to follow. That means that the points of the jacket are going to be nice and even. And then here on this side, I'm going to make sure that you've got room for your placket. Okay. Yeah, definitely big glasses. Okay. Now on the dress, I'm gonna go, okay, I wanna make sure that we have time for the other one, so I'll just simplify it. I was gonna get all crazy and do some embellishment. Another time, another time. Okay, so just shading down into the skirt. I'm showing where I'm going into the lines of where the fabric flows. Remember I showed you our squiggly line down at the bottom? Now see how there's a cutback? I'm gonna go up because if the fabric folded, that's where it would fold back. You give it a 3-dimensional look to it. Okay. All right, let's give her a little bit of a collarbone. Love the little pit of a neck. I think it's such a nice part on people. Okay, there we go. All right. And yeah, this is totally a Carhartt jacket. It's just very fashiony. Okay, so now our next one, jumpsuit, big glasses, boots if we can. And then we are going to be getting into sharing and Q&A and all that fun stuff. So excited to see what you guys think, have been doing. If I get to work with you one day. Okay, so very lightly drawing the figure. Boop, boop, boop. I think my pencil is starting to my assistant always makes fun of me because I have a massive pile of pencils everywhere, and if my hair's up, there's usually like 6 pencils in it. It's not done as a gimmick. It's just I stick them in there and I forget they're there. Okay, so we got this on, and what kind of jumpsuit are we doing? So many different kinds. So let's do something that is, I'll start with the bottom portion. So we got a drawstring. I'm going across that kind of like very high hip. And we got some boots that are happening. Kind of a little bit, no, they're not super long. But they're slouchy. So I've got some slouch on there, side pencil, and so that's gonna kind of come up. A little bit of a drop crotch. So what happens is when it's going into the boot like this, it's gonna kind of be folded. Anytime I'm doing those folds, I'm going sideways on my pencil. So it makes it nice and wide. Oh man, I wish I saw some of those suggestions before I got started on this one. Latex is actually, it's super fun and way easier to illustrate than you would realize. It's really about just like high contrast reflection. So everything in my class is about the weight of the fabric, the drape, the shadows, and the light. And if you get the concept of that, you can draw anything. All right, so then on the top, I'm gonna have it kind of like super low and kind of billowy. And then here, I'm gonna do some like bra cup. Okay, so what I just did by making this little bodice underneath, followed the lines on the figure that were already there. Makes it nice and quick and easy. And then what I'm gonna do is maybe if we have time, I'll add a little lace onto it. So we've got our jumpsuit. Now don't forget, that needs a center front seam. And we got our shading with the side of our pencil. Here's some shading on our boots. And she needs to have a huge drapey sweater on because it's all about those big drapey sweaters. Everything everywhere is about big sweaters. So I made a giant collar on it, and then I'm gonna have it come down like this. So let's give her some like dangly earrings, and I'm gonna keep her hair short. And I'm just going to go in and reflect. I'm going to bring some light out of it. I did that with my eraser. Shade it here. And around the top. On the lace, just like this. You can draw squiggles, you can draw lace. So I'm adding some lace in there very lightly. Obviously we get into more detail when we get a bit more advanced on the sketching. And glasses. Oh, I usually have a huge stack right there. Okay, things to consider on the glasses. Got the bridge. You can do some oversized cat eyes. And then you're gonna add in some reflection. We're gonna fill those bad boys in. Now on the face. Giving her nice big round lips and bridge of the nose is too low. And we are almost at time. So we're gonna have a half hour of sharing and questions and all the good things. Excited to hear how this was for you. This is a sweater, so I'm gonna make it really soft. Okay. And I gotta erase her body under, so it's not a see-through one. All right, 6 o'clock on the nose. So let's see who is. Perfect. So we're going to start with questions for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to be doing some sharing. So if you're working on something, you want to take the next 10 minutes, kind of finish it up, put it together, reach out to the panelists, let them know that you want to share so that they can be ready to introduce you. And I'm going to just go through some of the questions. Recommendations on brands to buy that are good art supplies in the future for when to have when we possibly attend. You know, the nice thing about going to school at FIDM is that the supplies are included, and they supply really, really good quality supplies. So the materials that we use at school is Prismacolor, which is fabulous. I'm really happy with it. And the Strathmore is the paper company. We do a layout bond and also marker paper. You want to make sure if you're playing with markers, which I would recommend playing with markers because it's lots of fun, do it on marker paper. Make sure it's on the correct paper. It will make your life a lot easier. And then it's also Prisma for the pencils as well. And play around with some fine pens as well. Pencils, I've been using the same kind of pencil since I was 3. So I've just stuck hard with it. But really when it comes to pencils, that's a very personal thing. It depends on how strong your line quality is. So if you tend to press really, really hard, you might want to choose a harder pencil so that it doesn't end up becoming too thick. If you're very light-handed, go for a much softer lead. Play around with it. Try a bunch of different brands, see what you like. And as you start going, is it based on feel? You know what ends up, so the question is that as you've started getting into fashion illustration, do you always end up drawing the 9 heads first? I mean, I wish you could see, I've got all my illustrations here. They kind of naturally end up becoming a 9 heads, but when I'm sketching something that's very detailed, so I'll put together a collection and it's very fast and I don't even know if anyone else could read it. But when I'm doing something that's very detailed and I have to be very methodical about where all of the seams are going in and how it's put together, I map it out. That's what I call it. I call it mapping. Like all of these lines, this is my map. It shows me where everything goes when I'm putting apparel on there. It helps. And it's kind of nice if you have one ready to go, you just slide it under and you can put all of the details on really quickly. I've noticed many fashion designer sketches tend to look this way. Wait, that just went away. Where'd it go? Oh, what if you were designing something for a petite person or for a male body? It's all about adjusting the illustration for your personal style. So it's the body, there's like certain things that are going to end up giving somebody stronger features versus softer, more dainty features. And personally, I like combining them, but if you want to do a figure that has a lot more strong features, what would happen is you would just make things a lot more squared, a lot stronger. There's different measure points on a male figure. Men tend to be all torso, very small pelvis, and shorter legs, things like that. So we would just go over it, and same thing with petite. So I've helped my students. I have one student that's going to be a children's wear designer. We worked on making a croquis together, and now she uses that for her illustrations. I have several designers that are doing menswear or clothing that's for all people. And so it's really like figuring out what type of designer you want to be and honing in on your style. Is that a light box underneath? Nope. It's just paper. I've got light next to it. That helps. For the poses, can they be different or do they have to stand still? You can do any kind of pose. This is like the basic breakdown on how the figure breaks into different parts. But if you end up attending, you'll end up learning about how to illustrate the figure from all these different poses, and then kind of in motion as well, and be able to illustrate clothing while still in motion. So like, let's say you were hired to do a stage performance for a musician, and they're known for dancing and moving a lot. You're probably going to want to illustrate your design for them in a pose that they would do. It helps them understand your vision more, like they can see it more. So it kind of depends on what the purpose of the illustration is and who the client is. What would you do differently if you were to draw a petite model, plus size, or both together? Petite, it would be taking the mark points and making them closer together, and making sure that you're also scaling it so that it still makes sense. Because the thing with it, you're not going to worry about it looking like kids, because children, the proportions are different than adults. So it would be an adult proportions with a smaller frame and the same size head. And on plus size, when grading, which you'll learn about at fashion school, grading is when you take a base size and you make it larger and smaller. So bodies tend to get larger and smaller in specific areas and not so much in others. Like faces tend to stay the same, necks stay the same, wrists, ankles, but like the arms, the chest, the waist, the hips, and it's really about finding what your preferred shape is. So playing around with it, like seeing how does it look when I'm adding more curves, and how am I adding the curves? And then you have your base of it and you'll be able to draw around it. Look at photos, look on the internet, find figures that you find inspiring to you, and start practicing illustrating it and then working from that. Let's see, how would you draw out accessories that are maybe too small to be seen on okay. So what you can do is, if you're illustrating something, you can do detail call outs. I don't know if you saw in the beginning, here, I'll just rip this down. So example, this was for one of my classes. It was about the drawing floral prints. So I did actual like swatch call outs. You can do that with your trim. So let's say you're presenting it to a possible employer and you want to be able to show the trim details. Do a blow up of it. Put it in a circle, put it in a square. Make sure that it looks clean and framed so that you can see what it is. And then on the figure, you're just going to hint to the shape and add a little bit of highlights onto it. If I'm more interested in painting fashion illustration for dress brands to use in the marketing, actually design. Seems like there's a lot of questions in that one, so I think I'm going to come back to it. Sorry, Helen. We'll get to you. Adding the face was hard. It turned out bad because I'm not good at drawing any suggestions. Practice. I know that's not really a fun suggestion, but what I would recommend is start with the face, focus on the face, and break it into shapes. And then also take a break from it. Flip the paper upside down. That's one of the best fashion advice that I can give you. If something looks off, turn your paper upside down. You will immediately see what's off balance. Or you can even turn the paper around and look at it from the reflective side. Designers do that when they're draping gowns or draping things. They look at the dress form in the mirror because your eye, you get to see things in a different perspective. And that will help. How would you make layered ruffles? Same way I made the other ruffles. You just do a line of them, then do another line, and make sure you have the lines going up. I.e. we've got a ruffle here, got a ruffle there, got a ruffle there, and then I just add those lines. And then you have to think about where's it coming from. So if it's coming from a shoulder, you have to make sure that this is the shoulder of a top. You know, where is it coming from before you draw that out. Okay, how would you add color to a sketch? I would start playing around with pencils. Start with pencils, start playing with markers, and test them before you put it on your illustration. And if you're loving your illustration and you're a little unsure about your colors, go ahead and put a piece of paper on top of it, copy it, and try filling it in. So then that way your original illustration is preserved, and then that way you can kind of play around with colors. Because things are also, if you're feeling frustrated with the colors, step away from it, let them process and dry, and then come back and see how it's looking. All right, I'm gonna try Helen again. Okay, if I'm interested in painting fashion illustrations for dress brands to use in marketing, collateral versus actually designing outfits, is it all right to start painting photographs that brands post on Instagram as examples and tag them? Yes, absolutely. Is it standard to ask for permission beforehand? It's very rare for anybody at this point in social media for anybody to get upset, because all you're doing is you're giving them more content. Everybody wants more content. Everybody wants more shares. They want more people to follow. So if you're doing illustrations of models or brands and they like it, they will repost it. And then it also is like a win-win. So I think that just make sure you tag everybody. If you're going to be copying, if not copying, but if you're going to be using something as inspiration, just make sure you're giving them credit, and you'll be totally fine. I haven't heard of anyone caring for many, many years. What if you want to add color? Do you shade with pencil or just the color? So the way that I do it, which I would say probably what's best is to illustrate it and in pencil and then lay the paper on top of it and then doing full color. I have a tendency to go straight into color on top of it, but if you do marker on top of pencil, it's going to end up locking the pencil in. So if you ever go on top of your illustrations with marker, keep that in mind. It's going to muddy it and it'll lock it in. Sometimes you want that. If you want something that looks a little gritty, it looks cool. Otherwise, you want to be able to either put paper on top or erase away a lot of your design lines. Now it's share time. I'm excited to see what you guys got. So let's see who we have.
Hi guys, it's Nick Varios, fashion design co-chair, and I'm back. Marina, you did such a wonderful, to come to FIDM, you can look for Marina Leight as your fashion sketching instructor in the fashion sketching department. Thanks, Marina, and thank you to everybody. I'll leave it to Marina to say goodbye.
Nick, thank you so much. I mean, we are so lucky that we got to, that we were able to have Nick be a part of this event. He is so amazingly talented and so busy doing so many amazing things in fashion. I'm constantly impressed by him on pretty much on a daily basis. You guys did really great. I feel like it seemed like everyone was able to follow along pretty well. If it went too quick, or if you weren't really feeling your sketch, don't forget everything has been recorded and that you can go back and watch it again, which I would love if you did. I hope that I get to see all of you soon. I see a lot of talent here. I was very impressed with everyone that shared. You can also share, I think that we're also going to be able to offer, if you can tag it and share it on Instagram as well. And I know that the school does some reposting. And if you have any additional, there you go, don't forget to share. If you have additional questions, don't forget to, just feel free to reach out. And you guys did an excellent job. I really hope that we get to continue working together in the future. And I hope that I get to see what you did. Please show me. Thank you, everybody. I'm just like looking at the chats in the meantime. Aww. So my email, Marina, is it's mleight@FIDM.edu. So the first letter of my name, and then my last name. And thank you guys. All right, everybody. Well, I'm reading all these beautiful messages and they really are so wonderful. And I really hope that I get to work with you guys in the future. And, let's be the new generation of fashion. I think that there's really great things in the future. And I do think that there's things, the way things have been done need to change, and you guys get to be a part of that. And that's really cool. And you guys have a wonderful rest of your evening. Bye.